Not seem obvious to you.
I can give you my answer.
Okay, what is your answer?
But you're going to take it as an Islamic answer.
No, I won't take it. I'll only take it as your answer. I won't take it as representative of all Muslims. I'll only take it as your answer. Me and you talking. That's fine. I won't do
it. Honestly, I've never thought about why animals suffer. Because I just see animals, the way animals suffer is that's their nature. That's what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And a lion is going to eat them.
Yeah, but there's suffering that they experience that isn't part of
I see human suffering that we inflict on each other.
Yes, I'm not talking about that.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
But I've never thought about why.
Okay.
I just see that.
Could God have put an anaesthetic in predators' teeth? Could God do that?
Yes.
Right? But he didn't do that, did he?
Could God have created?
But he didn't do that.
He didn't.
Right.
Could
now,
God have created?
When I look at how predators, if I look at how predators eat their prey, it looks like a lot of suffering that's unnecessary, because God could have put anaesthetic in their teeth. Yes. He could have made all animals vegetarian.
Yes. He
right?
could have done this, he could have done that. That's what I'm saying.
When the dinosaurs got wiped out, right? Some of them got wiped out instantly, they vaporized, but others died very slowly from starvation as their energy source. Yeah, the evidence points to that. Okay, we have to go on what the evidence points to. Okay? Right. So it seems to me then that the evidence. Now, here's what happened. The theologians have discussed this, right? Because before a few hundred years ago, we didn't know that animals were suffering hundreds of millions of years before humans ever came along. So if you asked theologians, why is there suffering, they usually would answer because of the fall, because of human free will, because of relations, things to do with humanity. Yeah? They didn't know that animals have been around for hundreds of millions of years before humans. This is a recent discovery. Okay, the last few hundred years we discovered this. And this is a very serious problem for believing in an all-powerful, all-good God. Because when we look at the suffering of animals over hundreds of millions of years, it seems like God could easily have stopped it. It wouldn't affect the test that is your justification for suffering. It wouldn't affect that. Yeah? And it would be easy for God to put anaesthetics into predators or to make no predators. Yeah? He could have done that easily, but he didn't do that. He could have made the dinosaurs all die instantly, but no, they died slowly. Yeah?
This is what I'm saying.
Right now, what we see then, Phil.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Phil, your question to me is the same as asking then, well, why did God create the atmosphere the way it is and didn't do this and didn't do X? Do you know what I mean? It's just.
So you don't need to think about that.
But you should think about that. This is a problem for you to think about, yeah? Because you're asking me, right, to believe in an all-powerful, all-good God.
I haven't said that to you.
That is it not part of the Muslim theology to make other people Muslims? So you are, okay? No, you haven't said it explicitly, but it's implied by your belief system. Okay? Right. So you're asking me to believe in an all-powerful, all-good God. That's what is implied by your belief system, right? And I say, I look at the evidence, and it doesn't look like there's an all-powerful, all-good God.
With the greatest respect,
right?
Just me, this is my answer, is just because I don't know every intricacy of every, like that question, doesn't make me think, oh, well, that means there's no God.
But isn't it...
I go on... Do you know what I mean?
If the evidence says to you, it doesn't look like... If I say something exists, and the evidence says it doesn't look like that thing exists...
You're saying because there's a being that's all-powerful, all-knowledgeable, all X, Y, and Z, and there's suffering which I can't understand, that means that being cannot be there.
It looks like the evidence is pointing to that claim is not a true claim.
No. How? Just because something is suffering, I don't understand why that animal is suffering, that means that being is not there. I don't understand how you make that jump.
I'll show you how I make that jump. Okay? If I make a claim, right, that I'm the fastest runner in the world, right, and then I enter a race and Usain Bolt beats me, right, it looks like the claim is false. Now it could be. It is false. Well, it might be that I didn't run the fastest I could run. You could come up with an explanation, right? Maybe I just let him win. So it could still be true, right, that my claim is true. And the fact that what you see didn't prove that I'm not the fastest runner in the world. I could still be. But what I've seen, it looks inconsistent. Because you entered a race and you got beat, right?
Yeah.
So if I see hundreds of millions of years of what at least appears to be unnecessary suffering
To you.
yes, of
You
course
don't
to me,
understand.
I
And
have to
you
go.
don't understand it.
Right? No, but I have to go on the evidence as best as I can assess it. So yes, it looks to me like I'm not the fastest runner in the world. I said maybe. What's your name?
let's go
Sorry.
to the,
Let's say Rob. Right. No, so what's your name? Alex. So if Alex entered a race, he claims to be the fastest runner in the world, and he lost. It would appear to me that his claim is false. Now, of course, it's always possible that his claim actually is true, and he let Usain Bolt beat him. He just let him win.
but you're
right?
gonna go
Now,
with Usain.
you're saying that I just don't understand the suffering.
No, but I
right?
understand. I understand where you've made that jump. Because you've seen him lose a race, so you come to think,
Right.
yeah, he may have done this, but his claim it doesn't really seem. Because I've seen him lose.
The claim looks inconsistent with the
My
evidence.
point is,
Right.
the suffering which you don't understand. How have you made the jump to mean that this being who's all powerful?
Okay, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
cannot
Because
be-
if he's all good, he should want to avoid suffering. Yeah. If he's all powerful, he can stop it. And if he's all knowledgeable, he knows about it.
No, but
So if all those properties are
If he's-
present,
okay, wait,
then the
let's take it.
suffering
Let's take it.
shouldn't be
Let's take it.
present.
If he's all powerful, why does that mean he has to stop it?
No, it's his all good means he has to stop it. Because the claim if he's all good, because by definition, a good being should not want other beings to suffer unnecessarily. That's what we mean by a good being.
Okay.
Right? If he's all powerful, then he can stop it easily.
Yes. But
And if
doesn't
he's
mean
all
that
knowledgeable,
he's-
he knows about the suffering.
Yes.
So those three
But that's what I mean,
properties
because he's-
means that we shouldn't see unnecessary suffering.
okay.
But we do.
Listen.
And therefore the evidence is
Can I come
inconsistent
back
with
to
the
you for one
claim.
second? Fine. Because he is those three things that he said, all powerful, all good,
Yeah.
and all knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows something that you don't know about that suffering.
Maybe, yeah.
Which eventually,
Yes.
when you look at the big picture,
Yes.
will be all good.
Yes. Yes, maybe.
there you go.
But that's the same answer to Alex losing the race.
Yes.
Maybe he let Usain Bolt win.
Yes.
Maybe true.
Yes.
But the problem is, what has the evidence told us? The evidence is not consistent with the claim. Now, it's always possible that you can come up with a maybe to explain away the
If
evidence.
you're going to keep going
Right?
maybes, then
Maybe you could come up with anything.
Okay, but now
I could say
take it
Adolf
on
Hitler was really a good guy. He had a good reason that we don't know about for what he did. Yeah?
No, I would say it's not.
Right?
It's clear in
Right,
our-
it looks to you
No, in
that
our
you don't know.
theology,
Look at
no, I do know.
How do you know?
The Creator tells me killing people is
But maybe
bad.
there's a good reason
No,
that you don't know
no, but the
about.
Creator doesn't say that.
It's a free will.
No, but the Creator doesn't say that. The Creator says to kill someone unjustly is bad.
But maybe it was justified and you don't
If
know
he
it.
says, if the Creator says to me to kill someone unjustly is bad, but X, Y, and Z, then you got a point. But he said it clearly, so we know he's bad.
Okay.
You don't. You may not, because if you don't believe in the Creator, you may say, well, maybe there was good in it.
But the problem is, you're going with maybe there's an explanation.
On that
On
basis.
that, right?
Only on that.
Okay, so
On
what
a
I'm
human
saying is
level-
you're inconsistent.
No, on a human level. Okay, fine. Maybe you want to say this. On that basis, I've said it to you right at the beginning.
Right.
On that specific
Yeah.
question, I haven't got an answer. On
Okay.
a human level of suffering, I feel that I gave.
I think okay. So let me say this. That basically your answer is really when you boil it down to is we don't know why God does it. You don't know.
I don't know.
Okay,
Some
fine.
other Muslims might know.
Fine. You don't know, right?
Why God
Okay.
let animals millions
Yeah,
of
go
years
ahead.
of
Go ahead.
suffering?
So the fact that there is suffering in the world as well.
He's talking about animals,
Yeah, the
dinosaurs.
reason why, the
Yeah, go
reason
on.
is, in order to exercise a free will, you have to have the good and the bad. Or if you don't have the good and the bad, then you can't exercise a free will.
Okay.
So it's just a necessity.
That doesn't explain natural suffering, does it?
He's talking about animals. my
We're
friend.
talking about
We don't
animals
have free
suffering
will.
hundreds of millions of years before humans.
Brother, do you have an answer?
What's that?
He's basically asking you, why did God let dinosaurs, you know when dinosaurs eat each other, animals eat each other, before humans were here, animals suffered. So if God was good, why is he letting, have I summed it up right?
Yeah, that's-
why is he
that's
letting
fair.
suffer? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't know.
there's a classic atheist argument from way back, and it's a flaw because it actually narrows down consideration from God's perspective to just whatever's happening now. And there's I think a couple of ways of sort of trying to approach it. One is, as the brother mentioned, that it's not just about it's about having a system where people are able to make decisions, good and bad. So talking about human suffering specifically here, but I'll get onto the animals in a moment.
Okay.
And to allow, for you to have sort of make decisions that are morally valuable, or have some moral value, you have to be able to make bad choices as well as good choices, and that entails allowing some suffering to occur, because the choices that are bad will have to have consequences. If you take a world where everything is good, then in fact nothing would be good, because actually there's no, if I can't even think of thought that's bad, then there's no free will. So it's, in a way, to allow free will, you have to allow some suffering to occur.
Okay, is there free will in heaven?
Yes.
Is there suffering in heaven?
No. No, but you're talking.
Do you see the contradiction?
No, it's not a contradiction, because what you've done is you've taken a different realm,
right?
Completely different realm,
right?
In which actually the laws on how we would live and they reconcile each other with are completely different, and you've sort of made it analogous to how we live here, and they're completely different. So one is a state of testing.
You agree that that conscious beings can exist in some state where they have free will and they don't have suffering. That must be true if you believe there's free will and no suffering in heaven.
So, what is the purpose of our free will here?
You tell me.
We believe this is an area where you're judged. So this is a state of you applying your free will, and then there's consequences for that real will. In paradise, for example, there wouldn't be that at all. And essentially, our nature would become such that we wouldn't be wanting to do those things that were negative anyway. So maybe the free will would be a different type of free will than what we have now. Now it's specifically about morality and how we're choosing how to behave. Now coming on to sort of the animal free will, which is sort of the more trickier question,
which is not addressed by this argument.
It's not addressed by the argument. So the animal suffering is, there's two ways of looking at this. One is that we're told, theologically in Islam anyway, we're told that every creature will be given its just right. So even in the time of, so whether that means the animals themselves are given some sort of compensation, whatever, for that moment.
Yeah.
And again, we're saying, I was talking about narrowing down the time frame in the argument. We're talking about a temporary, even if it's hundreds of millions of years or even billions of years, compared to what we believe would be an eternity.
Right.
If you then, even in percentages, that would become minuscule amount of suffering in the overall scheme of things. So I don't think the argument.
So the answer basically is they will be rewarded for their suffering.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Ultimately, yeah.
But here's what I find is the problem with that answer, is that God could give them their reward without the suffering. So it appears, because God is all powerful, so it appears that the suffering still is unnecessary. Being that allows unnecessary...
So the Quran directly addresses this question.
Go ahead.
And the way it does that, it says that we do not punish your people until we send them a messenger. So extrapolating from that verse, an answer to your question, is that if I was a maths teacher and I taught you maths, if I was a maths teacher and I taught you maths for 20 years or something, and I knew you very well, and I said, you know what? Sorry, Phil, your name's Phil?
Yes.
No need for you to sit this test. I'm going to give you a B+. Would you be happy with that?
If what was the first bit?
So I'm a maths teacher.
Yeah, got that bit. If you something.
So rather than you sit in an exam, I said, I know you really well. I'm just going to give you a B+.
Right.
Would you be happy with that?
Hell yeah. No.
No.
I know. Yeah.
So the idea is actually that the only just thing to do is to actually allow the test to occur. And then what that takes away is, it's not takes, because God knows what will happen in our understanding.
But again, this isn't relevant to the animals, is it?
So I'm dealing with the. So it is relevant if they're going to get some sort of reward at some sense for that.
No. But the whole point is, it's not justice. If they could get the reward without the suffering, and they're not being tested, because a dinosaur has no choice. There's no test of, when it went extinct, there's a nuclear winter, they would have died slowly from the food. There was no food around, right? I mean, some of them would have got vaporized instantly, right? But many would have died very slowly, horrible deaths. Yeah. Now, God could have given them their reward without that suffering, and they're not being tested. They didn't have anything that their free will is irrelevant to this suffering, right? So free will is irrelevant here, and testing is irrelevant here as well.
Why is the testing relevant?
Because they could have got their reward anyway, right?
But God could have given. I could have got my reward anyway.
No. But you're okay.
But this is what I'm saying, Phil. This is where I see you going to. Why didn't God just make this future? But then there would be no test. There would be no.
So in my perspective.
No. But the reason I want to get a B+ in a maths exam and not just be given it without taking the test is because I want to learn mathematics, right? There's a purpose there, okay? Now, I don't see any purpose to allowing an animal to suffer.
Sure.
It's not the same. They're not analogous.
Sure. So you've hit the nail on the head. What you're assuming is that because we cannot see the purpose, that there isn't a purpose.
No, I'm not assuming that. I'm saying no. I'm not. We gave an analogy where I said, let's us imagine that Alex claimed that he's the fastest runner on the planet, and then we put him in a race with Usain Bolt, and Usain Bolt kicked his ass. Now, it could be the case that Alex had a reason to let Usain Bolt win, right? It could be the case. If I rejected the claim that Alex is the fastest runner in the world, it doesn't mean that I assume that he isn't, right? That he had some great reason to let Usain Bolt win. He might have some reason to Usain Bolt win, but without me seeing that reason, then I don't accept the claim.
Sure.
And this is what I'm doing with God. If I don't see what the reason is for allowing the suffering, then I don't accept the claim that he's all-powerful, all-good, and all-knowledgeable.
So which claim of those three are you rejecting? Because you don't.
I don't know which of those three, but it could be all of them or none of them, or at least one of them. But it can't be none of them.
And what do you? And because you can't see the claim, what sort of research have you done to look for the claim?
I've read a lot extensively about this topic, and I even debated the theologian on a radio show who wrote the book on this topic about animal suffering. His name is Michael Murray, and he is a Christian theologian, but I think the same question applies to Muslims. It doesn't. And he wrote a whole book about this topic, and I debated him on a radio show about it. So I have read about it, and I have read what theologians have said about this topic, and I don't find their answers are very compelling.
Okay, so what is so?
Can I just ask you, what if God is so powerful and this and that? Why is he so preoccupied and interested in the human free will? Like, who gives a crap? I mean, he could just say,
maybe he gives a crap.
No, but there is so much more to life. Supposedly,
What is there?
I mean, if I was God and if I, could be the king of Earth or whatever, I wouldn't be so preoccupied with this testing free will. It seems a little bit. It seems like that's the only,
So there are some. Okay, let me try to help. Let me try and answer. So there are some things that, if you believe in a creator, that because of the qualities that the attributes that creator would have, necessitates that God would make human beings with free will. Almost necessitates it. This is sort of a bit off the topic because we're assuming that there is one, and we're not sort of going into all of that.
Sure.
So one of the things is that God would want to express, if we believe God is good, and forgiveness is a good thing. To express that attribute in its fullest, you'd have to have something to which you would forgive.
So if you had children, you want to prove their love to you? Do you want to test them?
No.
Do you need to prove your love to your mum?
No, my mum.
This relationship, why does it have to be such a?
So what you've done is you've changed the question.
What is?
Well, he has, but let's deal with one at a time.
So let's try
deal
and
with one at a time. We've all got questions.
Okay. Sure.
Let's deal with one at a time.
So the question was about why did God make this? Is that right? Am I misunderstood your question?
Why? If God is so powerful, He creates everything and anything. Why does the human being has to be at the center of this free will? And there is no much more to God than this free will of the human being, and then go to heaven and forever enjoy yourself. I would have thought, as a creator, there's so much more to this than testing the human free will.
Why?
Because it just seems irrelevant. Like, you think we're great? We're like, as humans.
Actually, there's something about free will.
We just next to animals. How what makes us so greatly special next to, I don't know, lions? I mean,
Alex, can I just? I think there's something that can enhance your point a little moment. Let me just.
Be dissatisfied that there's a God. And
Alex,
no, I just don't.
Can I just something that will enhance your question? What Alex was asking was, why is free will so important? Now, the way I see it is, if Rob decided to kill Alex right in front of me, and I had the power to stop him, I would. That's what we have a police force for, right? I wouldn't say, you know what, Rob's free will is so important that I'm going to have to let Alex die. No one would do that. It doesn't make sense. We want Rob to have free will, but free will and free action are different things. I think Rob has a complete entitlement to have whatever thoughts he wants. But I don't believe that Rob is entitled to do whatever he wants.
So
and I presume that you don't think so either, because presumably you would stop him killing him, right?
You see, what you're doing, what the problem with the analogy, and it is an issue with the analogy, is that you're assuming that whatever the setup is set up here doesn't require an action to be carried out before a punishment or reward can be given. That's not the scenario we accept. So, for example, what you're suggesting is that if Rob has a negative thought or whatever, a horrible thought, he wanted to kill Alex, for example, that someone should intervene at that stage, and then Rob should be punished for killing Alex, even though he hasn't done that,
or attempting to kill him.
Yeah. So this is where this is not how we believe that justice is served. We don't believe in pre-crime and punishments for thoughts. We don't believe that at all. In fact, that is injustice. You should be punished for the actions that you actually take, which is why there's a necessity for a test to be had.
But do you not agree that it's right to intervene if someone is doing something wrong?
For me, to intervene, yes.
Right. Okay, so you agree that if someone is harming someone else and you have the power to stop that harm, then you should intervene.
I've given the answer on a human level.
Right.
I don't think this is so. If
you're saying it doesn't apply to God.
God is all-knowing.
Right. But the problem is, we exist on a human level, and we're trying to decide, are the claims being made about God true or false? And we can only do that on a human level because we're humans, right? So it seems to me like the assessment that we should make is that there's too much unnecessary suffering to be consistent with the claim that God is all-powerful and all good. There was a good TV show, I don't know if you ever watched it, Red Dwarf, you ever see that?
Yeah, I used to watch it.
Do you remember the episode where they go to the prison planet?
I think, remind me.
Okay, so the episode, it's a long time ago. But this is very profound. On the Prison Planet episode, Rimmer gets put in jail, and the jail has this strange property that whatever crime you try and commit ends up happening to you. So he says to Lister, he explains it to Lister, and he goes, "Go on, just try it. Set fire to my bedsheet." So he sets fire to the bedsheet, and guess what happens? His jacket catches on fire. Right? Now God could create a world like that because God's all powerful. He can create Prison Planet. You'd still have, now Lister has perfect freedom of choice. He can choose to do something bad, but the negative consequences of his bad actions rebound on him, so other people are not harmed. God could create a world like that because God is all powerful, but we don't see a world like that.
No, but even in that world,
so why not?
Even in that world, wouldn't there be someone that doesn't care about the consequences and just will do it? So he doesn't care.
No, but the point is, any negative consequences in this world are set up so they go back to you. So if you try and kill someone, you die. You try and steal someone's property, your money's gone. God could create a world like that. It'd have perfect freedom of choice. And you could have the test, because do you decide to try and kill someone, right? But the suffering that is a consequence of those free choices doesn't exist.
So I understand what you're saying. We do have the consequences for our actions, but they're not in the here and now. And the consequences actually are without ending, so they're eternal, so in the future, obviously not in the past. So we have a similar concept. Now, the consequences of our actions are important actually, because they allow you to change yourself. And it's when you see, if I were to burn his jacket and my jacket caught on fire, my reason for not burning his jacket would be a selfish reason. It would be for my own benefit. Right. Actually, what I should do is actually see the fact that this individual is suffering, and actually
can I mention something?
Sure.
The fact that you know that if you burn his jacket, it's going to burn yours. You're not going to do it. So there's no free will.
Well,
Why?
It's a containment.
Why?
Because you know already the result.
No, but you could still have free choice. I mean, look, if I know the result, I know the result of, punching Rob or giving him a fiver. I know the result. One makes him slightly richer, the other one gives him a black eye. Now, I still have freedom to choose. Just because I know the result doesn't change the freedom of choice.
But Islamically, we're kind of the same, but we're not just. You're saying it should be an immediate reaction.
No, I'm not saying it has to be an immediate reaction. I'm saying it should be the one that minimises the unnecessary suffering.
So, in my view, that the suffering that you talk about, in the grand scheme of existence, because we don't believe that existence is just narrowed to this lifetime, is insignificant, and we're told something very similar to that. So that we're told of a saying of the Prophet where he said that if you take someone who's struggled and suffered in their lives, and you dip them in paradise for a moment, they won't even remember that they had suffered. And if you took someone who had all the opulence in this life and you put them in the hellfire for a moment, they would never remember even that they had any. So our concept is in the overall arcing of time, including the eternity that we would have in the future, that this would be an insignificant moment.
But it's not insignificant as when you're experiencing it, is it?
Sure.
So that doesn't really help. No. But do you know what I mean?
You know,
like if I killed who's the person you love the most?
Anyone, my mum, my dad.
Your mum, right? If I killed your mum slowly, tortured her and killed her, would you really say, it doesn't matter because she's going to have an infinity of paradise? You would say it does matter. You shouldn't have put her through that. So the fact, if it's a fact, right? But if it's true that she's going to get an eternity in paradise, does not alleviate her suffering when she experiences it.
So does it? Sure. So for me,
right? So that's not really an answer in my opinion.
I think it is an answer because I think I don't accept the thing that you put forward. So if you killed my mum as a theist, particularly a Muslim, there are a few things that I can be satisfied with. One is that my mother is going to be in paradise, and she's in eternal bliss. So one thing is that. Okay. The second thing is I know whatever I do,
she could be in the hellfire, right?
No, I don't accept that. But personally,
only God knows who's going to hell and who's going to heaven, right?
Overall, but as an archetype, we're told that Muslims will go to paradise. I mean, that's okay. We don't make the statement for ourselves, but because actually that's claiming knowledge that we don't have about ourselves. But in terms of I lost my train of thought. So one is that I know that my mother is going to go to paradise. The other point is actually that I know that whatever I do or don't do, you are going to pay for this.
Right.
So because we believe in justice.
Right.
And there will be justice recompensed for you. So I know personally of examples of people whose children have been killed by gang violence or whatever, and they've gone on to meet the people who killed their relatives and forgiven them.
Okay.
Because actually we have a bigger view of existence.
Yes.
So I don't think the.
But my point, it doesn't really. I don't think it addresses my point. I understand forgiveness has a quality. That's fine. Okay. My point is that if you could stop that suffering, if you had your lightsaber out, you were standing there, you've got Jedi powers, you can pull out your lightsaber, and you could stop this event from happening, you would.
As a human being, I would. Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, so you're trying to assess another being. You're trying to assess the claim that's being made about that being, that they are perfectly good and all powerful. Okay? And you see them standing there and they just watch. They do nothing. Yeah? It would at least appear to you that being is either unable to stop it or unwilling to stop it. Yeah? That's at least what it appears to be. Now I accept that they could have some good reason to allow it. They might. But the evidence that you see is they look like they're not either all powerful or all good.
Sure.
And we have to go with the evidence that we see.
So let me give you a sort of, maybe try to give you a kind of example. Let's take surgery for example.
Yes.
Somebody comes in, seem fine, nothing too much wrong with them. I put them on a table, hold them down, give them something to try and minimise some of their pain. Imagine a time before anaesthetic.
Yes.
But I get a knife, I cut them open, I try and do something, they don't understand what's happening, I do something to them and then I send them away afterwards.
Yes.
They've got a big gash with some stitching going on, they're in lots of pain, they're suffering.
Yes.
What they don't understand is what's happened to them and why the system is this way.
Sure.
And we're in a sort of similar scenario. We're trying to understand the mind of the surgeon as a non-surgeon. We're trying to see, I know that I have suffered.
Yes.
But I don't know the benefit of that, if there is one.
Right.
And this is a similar scenario. So the surgery probably is life-saving, and the person will in time heal and actually go on to live a better life and a healthier life than before the surgery took place. Yeah. But the process of the surgery was a very painful process.
Yes.
And we believe in that the analogy is like how we are here. So this is a test. We're being tested. And because it's a test, it's not a straightforward, easy thing, and that's why there is suffering. But actually, afterwards, we benefit from this, and this benefit goes on. We believe it's for eternity.
Okay. So can I say what I think the problem with the surgeon analogy is? Sure. So first off, if we see someone cutting someone up, let's say they're amputating a leg, right? If we see that, and we don't have any evidence that they have a good reason to cut that person's leg off, we don't. Of course, we can keep an open mind and say they're doing it to save the person's life. But we can't just automatically assume that's why they're doing it. They could be a psychopath, right? So we can't just assume that. And one thing we might do is to say, well, let's look at the evidence as far as we can gather it. Did that person become better off? Yeah? Okay, hang on, let me finish the point, right? Also, did the surgeon appear to use the most painless methods possible? Right? And if you knew that they had access to anaesthetic and didn't use it, that would, at least on the surface, contradict the claim that surgeon had good motives. Yeah. Now, of course, there might be some reason that you didn't know that they couldn't use the anaesthetic. Maybe that person had a fatal allergic reaction to it, right? But the evidence that you have is that person's a psychopath. All you saw was they were tied up on a table and they cut their leg off, right? So now, with the God analogy, then, if we agree with the God analogy, of course it's always possible that the suffering has some higher purpose, okay? But we can't see the afterlife, so we can't see what those rewards are. So that seems to be a claim that is not based. The evidence doesn't back that claim because we can't test that. We can't confirm that, right? We also, it appears to us that, let's say we look at the death of the dinosaurs, right? And you could come up with a gazillion other examples. They look like they died more painfully, more suffering than they needed to. They could have all been wiped out instantly. If God decided, I'm going to get rid of the dinosaurs so humans can be here, he could have killed them painlessly. But it appears that he didn't, right? So it appears then that it's much more like the case of the guy who cut someone up with a surgeon and he didn't use the sharpest tool. He didn't use the anaesthetic, yeah? And so the evidence to us is that's not consistent with that being perfectly good and perfectly normal. Now, of course, I accept there's always a possibility that there's some explanation that we don't know. Sure. But we have to go on the evidence that we have.
So what evidence would I have that the person isn't a psychopath? That's probably the question, isn't it?
Right.
So I would say I do have. For me, what constitutes evidence that this individual isn't a psychopath? And you probably wouldn't accept these as evidence, but for me, I would.
Give me something I would accept. So, let's start with something I would accept, because otherwise we're having this conversation.
Sure. So one is that obviously I believe that there is a creator, and I believe that he has certain attributes, and we've sort of discussed some of them. And I believe that the human beings have been communicated to by this creator, and we have texts of this communication. So I've quoted the Quran, I've quoted some hadith, and these things give us this overall picture that there is some reason for the suffering in the world, and actually that there's an outcome to this, and overall in the overarching picture that this suffering is minuscule and momentary.
Right.
So for me, as an individual, as a Muslim, when I sort of try and reconcile this in my mind, I don't see the problem, because I see what I would think as the surgeon's certificates on the wall. Now, the issue might be that you don't accept that. Yeah. And that's another discussion.
Sure. Okay, fine. That's fine. I see you're saying the big picture tells you he's good, right? I see where you're coming from, and that's a reasonable answer. The problem is that some of the things you said, I think, don't follow from each other. Okay. So, for example, let's suppose we accept that there is a creator. There's an intelligent being that created the universe. I mean, I don't see any reason to believe that. And if you want to give me one, that's fine. But let's say we accept that. There's no reason to believe that intelligent being is all good. Because it could be that he's just like us. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Right? It could be that he's deceptive creator. And it even says in the Quran that he leads people astray. Right? So it could be he's deceiving you for some purpose you don't know, right? Maybe it could be that here's something that's possible. It could be that he gave the Quran as a test for you, and there are bad bits in the Quran, right? The bit where it says kill all the polytheists. I think that's a bad bit, and there are good bits in the Quran where it says there's no compulsion in religion. I think that's a beautiful line. Love that. So there are good and bad bits, and maybe the Quran is a test for you to condemn the bad bits and accept the good bits. You don't know, right? It's a mystery. So the problem is that the assumption that God is one, all-powerful and all good, and given you the truth, doesn't follow from your assumption that there's a creator and he gave you the Quran. There could be a creator who gave you the Quran to test you to see whether you'll find the good bits good and the bad bits bad. And if you find all the bits good, he's going to go,
But it says also
you failed the test. You failed the test.
Sure. So
right?
I think the approach that you've taken is sort of a hyper-skeptical approach, which is fine.
I think being sceptical is the right approach in these cases.
I think you're unnecessarily sceptical, but that's fine.
Okay.
So when it comes to how would I sort of assess what's going on? So let me try and give a slightly bigger picture. So you know that probably the default position in mankind has been theism for most of our existence. And this atheist or agnostic perspective, well, agnostic maybe not so, but atheist perspective definitely is a more modern phenomenon.
This goes back to ancient Greece, as far as I know.
Which is relatively modern in the history of mankind.
Sure.
And we know that from recorded history and even sort of mythology, we know that the concept of communication between a divine being and human beings is found in all cultures.
Yes,
and in all,
but not all good beings. So I think the idea that God is all good is actually more modern. I don't know of any religions, the ancient religions, that say that God is all good until the idea of atheism. They're kind of contemporary.
I think
it's a Christian concept.
I don't necessarily subscribe to that specifically because it's sort of complicated.
Isn't it one of the properties of God, the 99 properties of God, that He is all good?
So we have lots of
There are 99 properties of God, right?
The term good is sort of
good is not.
Yeah, it's not one of those. It's more of a Christian. The argument you've used is more of against a Christian. But
so, do you think God is not all perfectly good? Is that a claim that you reject?
I think God is just, and justice is good quality.
Okay, so does that mean He's good?
We can only assess what God says about Himself. We can't just sort of superimpose our own sort of definitions.
What if God was lying to you?
No, hold on. In line with what you're talking about, we can't superimpose our own sort of.
But I think we have to. I think we have to because we are human beings. So if we're going to assess the claims of religion, we can only do it as human beings.
You just said
we can't do it as gods.
You just said, "Is God?" You asked the question. Is God all good?
Yes.
Right? So that's a claim but that's a sort of a position you've taken. But we don't use that position. So you're talking to a Muslim here. He's
I understand that. Okay. So do you think that claim is not? Do you accept the claim that God is all good? So I mean, to be honest, the all just is going to be the same thing, isn't it? It's going to boil down to the same thing.
Well, I think if you use that term specifically, then my argument is probably more than valid in the sense that there is justice overall, and justice doesn't entail non-suffering.
Exactly, justice is well. It entails if God is all powerful and just, then He should not allow unnecessary suffering. I mean, what you're saying is that suffering is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
exactly
so it doesn't contradict the basic thrust of the argument. The fact of whether God is good or just doesn't really change anything here. So that is kind of irrelevant.
Sure.
As far as I see.
So if there is a system that God has set up that we're in which suffering is a necessary part of that, because for whatever reasons we can think of, I don't think that invalidates God in any way, or any of those properties either in any way.
Well, the way it does so is, I think invalidates too strong a word. I don't say it invalidates God. What I'm saying is I can't accept the claim because the evidence doesn't look consistent with the claim. I'm not saying it disproves God. I don't make that claim. I claim that it looks that it looks like it looks like what's OSCC Dawa?
I've got no idea. So someone just attached this to me.
It's probably some University Dawa thing or something. Okay, so it looks. It's a YouTube channel, is it? Okay. It looks like the evidence that we see does not support the claim being made, and therefore we should provisionally reject the claim. Yeah.
So what are you? So you're rejecting without looking at the religious texts, or just?
Yes, that's without. I mean, this line of argument is independent of the religious text. Of course, you should. I have read the Quran and the Bible and other religious texts. You know, so I'm not unfamiliar with what they say. I'm not going to claim to be a perfect expert on them. We can, but it seems to me that the evidence, as it appears to us, is inconsistent with the claims being made, and therefore the rational thing to do is to not accept those claims.
Sure. So I obviously don't accept that there is that. The thing that I would say is that even my reading of the Quran, even the verses you mentioned about kill them where you find them is in wartime specifically talking about a specific group of people and not a general statement. So I don't find any bad bits, if you like. So
okay, you don't.
I don't find any bad
right.
bits.
So the fact that
it's not about he doesn't, there isn't. That's the claim.
That's it. Yeah.
no, but that's the same thing.
No,
that's
it's
the same thing.
No,
That is the same thing.
That verse that you quoted,
Yeah.
if you really literally, yes, we could both agree it means something that's evil, right? However, there's a context to it. So if we don't understand the context, right, we can't say it's evil. We have to first understand the context and then say, oh yeah, it's still evil. Or not.
Okay. Right. You're saying it's not evil, okay? Because of the context. Fine. Right? I'm saying it looks to me like it's evil, and I don't see that it gives the context that I think. I know what the argument is. It's only in the time of wartime when they were fighting us. I understand. I know the argument, right? Okay. My point is, you can't separate it is from I think it is. Those two statements are the same because it is your opinion, right? You have to assess: is this the word of God? Is God truthful? Is God? Yeah. So those two statements are the same.
A quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said everyone agreed that it was evil, right? But to agree that something's evil, you need to have a specification for what evil is. Correct.
Yardstick.
Yes.
And what is your yardstick for?
That's my instincts. I have moral instincts.
Yeah, you're allowed that. But then
and my
asserted
instinct, just like I have an instinct for beauty, I think my wife is beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just
it's my instincts.
It's not nothing. It's got no it's not based on it. It's just based on what you're. Like,
well, it's a mixture of logic and instinct.
Logic?
So I have. Because there are some things like if I have an okay, let me explain.
He's trying to claim.
Let me clarify, right?
Morality.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
He's trying to.
oh me. Of course I am.
You're going to say the Quran has told you what's...
They're going off on the moral
Well,
argument.
hang on. If you want to do your own argument, you
No.
can.
I asked him.
We're having a really good chat. I think we're having a good chat. Very respectable, all rational, no shouting. It's all good. Right?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So to answer your question, it's a mix of instinct and logic because you first have an instinct that it's wrong to harm other people, and then you use your logic saying, well, hang on, what's going to minimise harm? Maybe there are cases where you do have to harm someone. Maybe there are some justifiable wars. So you so you have to use a mixture of your logic and your instinct. So that's where I get my instinct of what's wrong and what's right. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that helps answer part of it. But when you said I have this instinct that I don't like to see other people get harmed.
Correct. Yes.
Like, where does that come? Like,
I don't know where that comes from. I have that instinct.
And then if you believe that,
I don't know where that instinct comes from. I think it probably evolved, but I don't know.
oh, so you're
I don't know where that
not
instinct came from. I have that instinct.
Okay.
And I have to follow it because that's my instinct.
Can I just say?
Right? I don't know where it comes from.
Can I just
You
say?
see there is a contradiction here between
What?
the first verse and you just mentioned about how you
Speak up, brother.
how
Loud.
Quran.
Sorry?
You mentioned about there is no compulsory in the religion.
Yes.
And you mentioned the other.
Yes. Yes, those verses look contradictory to me. Well, I don't see why the Quran wouldn't have contradictions in it.
Exactly. So
Because I think it's written by human beings.
You should bring this.
So there's nothing. What's the problem?
Say why this is a contradiction versus, and you claim that Quran there's no contradiction in it.
I don't claim there's no contradiction.
No, the Quran.
So that's
I mean,
fine.
The Muslim,
You claim it.
Yeah.
But I don't.
That's
So
what
what's
I'm
the
saying.
problem?
You need to bring this argument to the Muslims, and why there is a verse saying that there is no compulsory in religion. There's another verse that they need to kill this disbeliever or whatever you.
And in fact, the unbelievers have to suffer, right?
how
It
do
does say unbelievers are going to hell.
What's unbelievers?
So it's much more complicated.
Okay, fine. All right,
There's a whole contextualization.
Okay. But to me, at least the way I look at it, that's compulsion. Because what do we mean by compulsion? It means I'm going to threaten you with violence if you don't do something. If I said you can vote Conservative or Labour, but if you vote Labour, I'm going to torture you, then there's compulsion there, right?
So you're talking about.
But anyway, we're jumping to a different topic. Let's not go to a different
Can
topic.
I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
In the English language, when an Englishman comes home to his wife and says, "Hey Peaches, I'm home," right? You and I as English speakers recognize what he means by that. It's a metaphorical term meaning you're beautiful, right? Now, if we translate that into a foreign language, and someone in that foreign language, whether Chinese, wherever, reads that, what is he going to think? Why is this man calling his wife a fruit?
Yeah.
Right? Now, it requires me and you who know the English language to help be a commentary and to help you understand what it was meant by in the original language.
Sure.
So once you translate a verse, kill the unbelievers where you see them, from a foreign language to the English language, you too also need the commentary on what was meant by that and the context in which it was meant. If you just read the literal meaning, you're going to get a different meaning to what was intended.
Okay. But the problem is that people can come up with different commentaries, right?
So
there's no
commentary has to be based on evidence. It can't be based on my opinion.
Okay. But of course,
he used. I can give you a claim. He used the same word as you translated his belief, but in Arabic it's the same kuffar. In another verse, when you talk about the farmer and planting, يعجب الكفار النبات, like the farmer, but they meant by kuffar here, which is you translate it as disbeliever. In the other verse, they are the farmer, people who.
But there are plenty of people that speak Arabic that take that view. That's what it means, right? So I don't think. Obviously, I'm a non-Arabic speaker, right? And I have to go with the understanding that I can get, okay? But the claim that, if only you knew the Arabic, you would see that it means this, doesn't look like a reasonable claim, because there are plenty of people that speak Arabic that take it to literally mean that, right? So I don't think that's very reasonable.
The same text he used the same word, exactly the same word. But here it means something, and here it means another.
These are really side topics, I think.
Yeah, these are side topics. I agree. What's your name? Sorry, Imran. I think it would be good if Imran and I could focus on the issue at hand, because these are side topics and it's easy to get.
But I want to just address
distracted.
a couple
because I think we're having a
just want to say a couple of things. I think
go ahead. Yeah.
I understand why the brothers are sort of all joining in, because they're feeling a little bit buttons pushed.
Yes,
and I want to say that. Even if you don't have and I completely agree with the brother's position about the language and context and commentary, but even if you don't have the commentary, the verse you quoted about kill the unbelievers where you find them, if you start from what it talks about, it's actually talking about a specific treaty with a specific group of people that was broken, and therefore, and it's nothing to do with religion. So this is not so you can't
actually the one was polytheists, not
sure, the mushriks, the polytheists. And so this was related to that specific treaty, and the command to fight them was after that treaty was violated. And that's irrespective of religion, really. It's not to do about whether they believe as Muslims or not. So, and the idea, so I don't find those two verses contradictory, but I was just talking about humans, how the fact that in a history most of us have been, as human beings, we've been theistic.
Yes, I agree with that.
And then we've become
but not necessarily monotheistic.
Sure.
And
so there's been a concept of something beyond human beings that has translated into sort of
I'm just going to check on the time.
Human being sort of experience. And there's been claims from many different societies, many different cultures, in many different times of people who've had communication and then afforded that.
Yes.
Now, this is a trend that's gone on, and it's sort of even a few people even today make the claim.
Yes.
But what this shows actually is that we need to account for this experience.
I agree.
So this is an observation.
I agree.
Of something.
I agree.
Now, so dismissing this concept, I think, out of hand that these texts is problematic. I think we should assess them and look at them and see what we come out.
Sure. I agree.
And one of the things that you said about the Quran specifically was you said that it was written by men, and it's a common, accusation made against the Prophet that this was something compiled together. But actually, I think historically, it goes against. There's history that goes against that idea, and the main reason is actually because the Quran itself asks people to write something like it. And forget the challenge itself, but just look at what happened historically. All it would require was for somebody of that time to say, well, here we go, this is something like it. And it would have ended the religion, completely finished it.
Would it?
It would have completely finished it. Absolutely.
See, I don't accept that.
Sure, I understand that.
I don't accept that.
Sure, I completely. I understand
people, first off, people don't change their religious beliefs in the face of contradictory evidence. We see that people that join doomsday cults and they predict the end of the world, they give it a certain date. And when that date happens and the world doesn't end, do you know what happens? So they don't say, I was wrong. My belief in my cult figure is ended. They come up with some rationalization why they were right all along. So I just don't agree that claim is valid, because people don't change their beliefs based off of conflicting evidence. So their belief systems are much more complicated than that.
So what that answer that you've given assumes is that there is evidence of people producing something similar.
I'm saying is if there was, it wouldn't change their belief. So I don't believe that the religion would end if someone came up with that.
So in the time when Islam was sort of literally in its fruition, there were handfuls of people who were receiving these words from the Prophet that they recognised as being something different from their usual sort of way of speaking and doing poetry, etc. At that time, when I think that there would have been, because we have examples of people at that time walking away from the religion, we have examples of that. So I agree with you, as a group, most people tend to sort of blindly follow it, but actually there are many that don't.
Sure.
And I have friends who are examples of that, sort of coming from atheistic backgrounds or religious backgrounds and changing religions, or leaving religions.
Yeah, and people go both ways.
Both ways, yeah. So I think that historically, because that rather than try to meet this challenge, the people actually fought the Prophet. They drove him out of where he was, and they went on to have many battles. I think historically, what that shows is that what he had wasn't something that could easily be reproduced. That's my perspective.
That's fine. Something not easily reproduced is fine. He could have been a brilliant poet, speaker. None of that means that it was given those texts by a being that's all powerful or righteous. He could have been given it by an alien, for all I know. You know, it doesn't follow that the fact that it was somewhat unique doesn't mean that it's from a god that has all those properties.
So absolutely. So I agree with what you're saying, but what I would say is that the fact that the Quran was something that wasn't easily reproduced by the people at the time. So I'll just use that phraseology just to make life easy.
Fine.
And the people fought the Prophet rather than to try and meet this challenge. They fought against him. And what this shows actually they were unable to meet that challenge for me when I'm looking at this. And the fact that this text itself makes certain claims for itself. One of the claims it makes is about the Prophet, peace be upon him anyway. It says that he was illiterate, which is actually something that's historically sort of recorded and valid as far as we're aware.
I mean, I've tried to look into that. I can't say I'm an expert on this, but I haven't found that there's the historical validation of that claim that Muhammad was illiterate is very strong. I mean, tell me what you think the best evidence is that claim is true, because from the reading I've done, I've not seen anything particularly convincing.
So how would you approach that sort of question?
I would look for historical biographies of him done by clearly non-biased sources, and I don't see that. Go ahead. You want to say something? Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Okay. By the way, 6:30 is when I have to go.
Okay. Same way.
Okay. All right.
That's fine. A little bit similar. Yeah,
that's fine.
So the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet. For example, if all of you guys know me, and I tell you that I'm the Prophet, and I tell you that, for example, you clearly know that I know how to write. You know how to write.
That was the point I was going to make.
Would you risk your life in all these battles where you're the underdogs? Would you actually risk your physical life and everything based on that whimsy claims?
A claim that you know is false.
I think you could claim. I totally believe that you could risk your life for something that you know to be false. I don't think it's unlikely at all. You might believe if you believe that it's going to lead to a better world, you will certainly risk your life for a lie. I don't see why you wouldn't. That's all it requires. All it requires is some ideological motivation to fight for that cause. You might fight for that cause because they're paying you. You might fight for the cause because you think that this person is an inspiration, or you might fight for the cause because you think it will lead to a better world. And you'll quite happily fight for a lie if you think. Like people do it all the time. Proper people, ideologies like Nazism and communism, they've done things they know are lies, but they believe in their ideology and they fight. They risk their lives for their ideology. So I don't see why that's an argument.
And en masse as well. But like
most of the people fought.
You said
Muhammad probably didn't know in person.
Then what you said is
probably only had a small circle of
He said earlier, Phil, is it?
Yeah, sure.
Phil said earlier that you would need it from non-biased, but I would humbly claim no one's non-biased. Like for example, a Christian is not going to be non-biased.
Well, that's a difficulty in believing the claim.
I'm not going to lie to you, a Muslim.
No, but there are. Okay.
But atheist is not going to be non-biased. So who's going to be non-biased? You, because look, if you're not a Muslim, then you're something else.
Okay. If, for example, no, you can. Let me explain, right? There are certain claims, right, that are accepted in a conflict by both sides. Okay, so for example, take World War II. Okay, both sides of World War II, the Allies and the Axis, accept the claim that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Where they would disagree is whether it was justifiable, but they both agree that Pearl Harbor was bombed. Right? So if you have a scenario like that, where multiple sides in a conflict agree on certain facts, then that gives you a validation that those facts are likely to be true. So what you would want to see is contemporary people who were not followers of Muhammad, maybe his opponents, who agreed with that claim, and I haven't seen that. I mean, if you know of that, I'd be happy to read it and examine it. From what I've read, I've not seen that.
Then we have
So we have historical. So when I say when you're assessing any sort of historical events, particularly about civilizations, and you got to remember that Arabia was in between the Romans and Persians, and didn't really have a written history or any sort of written system as such that was sort of.
But they had writing.
They had writing, but
I'm not quite sure what you mean. They have no writing.
They didn't record their history as such. And actually that's something that happened even after the Prophet's time, when actually the Quran came, and that was something of a driver of writing and recording, and books really became proliferate after that. So when you're assessing history, actually what we do is we go to those people and we see what they say. This is what we do. And then you look for, if you're going to revise that understanding of what these people were like from their own history, you look for evidence that contradicts this from other sources. So we have in the Muslim recorded history, which you could say is biased, but we have recording of companions who were doing the writing for the Prophet because he couldn't do it. We have for example, there was a treaty being written, and between a disbelieving group and the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the person who was writing the treaty put down, this is the treaty between the Prophet, the Messenger of God, and the person objected and said, well, actually I don't believe that this person is a Prophet of God, so I'm not going to agree to this treaty. So we have recording of the Prophet.
Do we have recordings by the opposing side?
So the person who then later became Muslim affirms the story. But at the time
he later became a Muslim. So that's not
Sure.
really an unbiased source.
No, I'm not saying unbiased.
Okay. Do we have an unbiased source?
So what I'm saying is that when you do history, you don't go to. First, you look at the people's history that they recorded themselves.
Sure.
And then then what you do is, if you want to revise your theory, if you want to say actually, however these people have recorded their own history isn't correct, because we have other evidence that suggests, then you would revise.
No. But we have to treat claims skeptically. Otherwise, we fall for anything.